Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton and the Daily Newcastle. We are joined by Ian from the Daily Newcastle pod. How are you doing, Ian?
I was going to say I'm in fine form. I know that's probably a sensitive issue for Southampton fans.
I don't even remember what it's like to have form at this point, so don't worry about it. And
that's
always,
the one and only jibe I will do, honestly. I think I've watched 3 or 4 Southampton games, and to be fair, you should have won at least 3 of them.
Yeah, you're right. We've had lots of discussions about this, and of course, I'm always, as always, joined by my co-host, one of our cohort at Southampton, Gregory Elliott. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I mean, look, Brembo and Diaz isn't at Southampton to upset anyone at Newcastle anymore. It feels like we can be more amicable. It's fine.
Exactly. With Diaz out the door now, how can we all be upset with one another? You know, it will be fine. So yeah, obviously, we are coming into this game on not the finest piece of form in our history. By that I mean, you know, we've won a game somewhen so long ago now it feels like a distant memory. We've drawn 2 games which were pretty one of the worst games of football I think I've ever watched in my life, and the other one is so long ago I can't remember. Obviously, Newcastle, bit of a different story. How is your guys' season going? Are you enjoying this season?
It certainly has picked up as we went into December. I mean, we picked points up. Case in point, first game of the season, we beat Southampton 1-0.
You did.
Didn't deserve anything out of that game. I mean, you know, we scored a breakaway goal and then hung on for the whole of the second half. We had a start of the season like that where we picked up a load of points and were playing very indifferently. We seem to reserve our good performances for the really tough games, if you like, which means that we were able to draw at home with Manchester City and then beat Arsenal. But at the same time, lose at home to West Ham. Does anybody do that?
We lose at home to everyone.
We had a horrible game where we did everything but score and lost to Brighton. We did play quite well in that game, actually. So the performances were indifferent, and we stopped picking up the points. We got a little bit of a jump start when we drew with Liverpool, and then things seemed to be picking up. But immediately we threw it all away and stopped playing in the second half to lose at Brentford. Dreadful game. Howe apparently had a 1-to-1 with all of the key members of his squad after that match, probably telling them, you know, you think you're good, you've got to show you're good. And we went on this run where we won 9 on the bounce, which was wonderful. Put us up to 4th, got us to 2 goals up in the first leg of the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. That's another sensitive issue to be talking, isn't it? Semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. I'm sorry. That was an accident. I was there on Sunday when Bournemouth started undressing us in the first minute, and they didn't stop until the 6th minute of injury time. We were well and truly clobbered, played off the park. And I don't really know why it wasn't more than 4, to be fair. There was a perfectly good goal disallowed. Dubravka was probably my man of the match because he made 2 or 3 excellent saves. And you start thinking, well, if the ball hadn't been running for us, we could have been doing a 9-0 defeat at home. Oh, no, that's again. I'm sorry.
You're doing well so far. You're right. It's not your fault. That is more that the media likes to remind every single person that Southampton lost 9-0 more than once and in different seasons, which it does seem to be our thing. We very much were sat at the Chelsea game thinking it could be another 9-0, and especially that Spurs game where we also were utterly humiliated, which did result in the sacking of Russell Martin. Yeah. But yeah, do you think that...
So we bounced back. We would be expecting, if we played you last weekend instead of Bournemouth, we would have come down expecting to steamroll you, like our 4-0 win against Leicester, our 4-0 win against Ipswich. This is Southampton. It's, you know, that's that. But then we were just so appalling, absolutely appalling, out Newcastled by Bournemouth that And have we reverted back to the start of the season where we couldn't string 3 passes together when we played away from home? I don't know. It's quite exciting to see how it comes out because we're not expecting to steamroll you. I watched you somehow lose the game to Manchester United. That all seemed to go wrong at 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
Tough times, I think. Tough times. I thought you were well worthy of being ahead going into the last phase of that game. And if it wasn't for some miracle performance by Diallo in the last 10 or 15 minutes, you'd have picked up an away win there and deserved it. So, I know it's a cliche to say there's no easy games in the Premiership, but genuinely there aren't. If the ball is going to bounce a particular way. Anyway, I've blathered too much.
Are we likely to see a reaction from your squad? My concern is that it would be like a wounded dog coming in that's just going to absolutely tear us apart. Is that the sort of reaction that your squad tends to see, or is it more likely that they sort of dither into poor form?
We're hoping for that sort of reaction, Craig. The only comparison that we have where we went with big expectations and came crashing down to earth with such a massive bump that I can remember was when we played away at the end of the season where we finished 4th. We had an away match at Aston Villa and played off the park there. We lost 3-0, and that was in the middle of quite a good run that we were having. The game after that Aston Villa game, a week later at home, was when we went 5 up after 20 minutes against Tottenham. So Eddie is capable of having a word with these players and getting to refocus and move on from a bad result and show what they're really about in the next game. So that's what I'm hoping for, Greg. But who knows? We've been inconsistent for too long in this season for me to be absolutely sure that's what will happen.
I think I'd love the idea that we would be that club that would be able to sort of, force a reaction in the sense of you come out guns blazing and then slip up against us. But I think Greg knows I'm the bigger pessimist of our podcast. I am the one who felt every bit of pain of this season so far, as opposed to Greg, who has much had us to finish 12th at the beginning of the podcast, had us to go on an unbeaten run over Christmas, and has had to, unfortunately, want to make his kids endure the rowdier part of the Southampton stadium for all of these defeats because apparently it helps them grow character. But yeah, I think it will be an interesting match either way. I'm worried that we're going to get absolutely trounced, but we seem to be finding our feet a little bit, which is...
Well, I've got a little bit of encouragement for you. Again, the team I see the current Southampton team most being compared to, forgive me for this, it's not me, it's the media, is the Derby team that was relegated with 11 points all those years ago. Now, of those 11 points, Derby won at the baseball ground and then drew at St James's Park. So they got 4 of their 11 points against Newcastle that season.
That is potentially a positive, and we'll have a little bit more of a chat about that when we come back after the break and we hear from our partners at Zencastr.
Yeah, so here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
And we are back. So
well done,
yeah.
Well done for reading these adverts live, because we do that. So many people have just recorded it, and it's somebody they don't know. That is, keep it real.
Very much so. Yeah, we're back. We'll talk a little bit about Southampton. What's your analysis of? You've said you've watched us play a few times this season. How do you feel as an outsider in an area with absolutely no, other than obviously the Ben Brereton Diaz thing, which it doesn't matter because I very much doubt he'll ever play for us again. That's all water under the bridge now.
Has he gone out on loan or something, or have he sold?
Yes, he's now gone out on loan to Sheffield United with an option to buy, which I think is a preferable for all parties because he hasn't really done a lot for us since that game, if I'm totally honest. And he seems to be a lot happier at Sheffield United. The fans love him there. I think it's mutually beneficial. If he does well and helps them score a few goals and they get promoted, I'm sure they'll happily part with the money for him. So it's a win-win all round. But he is one of a flurry of our signings that were only around at this point 6-7 months old that look to be on their way out of the door, which says a lot about our transfer business this year.
Well, yeah, I would have thought it would have been a loan deal to Hollywood, actually, given his performance when he stepped it up to look closely at Fabian Schär. There you go. What did you do? Schär was drawn into it. He was an idiot that day.
It's fine. We got nothing from it.
I haven't sat and watched loads of Southampton.
It's fair.
It's unfair, isn't it? Because Sky and the rest of them, they tend to target the teams up at the very top. So I've seen nearly, I've seen nearly every Chelsea game. I've seen a lot of Man City, not loads of Southampton. But I did sit through Man U Southampton because I thought you might do something there. But you actually were much more confident, knocked the ball around really well, tackled manfully. Really impressed with the guy who's coming to Newcastle in the summer. What's he called? Tyler Dibbling.
You in every top 6 club. 55 million is the price tag.
We feel like we've got a little bit of an edge there, though, because we were in when he first moved and he went to Chelsea, I think, and he didn't like it at Chelsea, so he's come back to you, isn't it? But we saw him Patrick up in Newcastle for the under-23s. And we had a proper good chat with him then. And it was quite close when he was choosing where he was going to come. So we're hoping that we've been staying in touch with him, sending him Christmas presents, get away for the 2 summer holidays and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, I was quite impressed with Southampton, particularly Dibbling. He went off injured, though. Was that something that is going to last any length of time?
4 to 6 weeks, so he missed out on the last game, and that's when we discovered. So that is problematic for us, and probably a benefit for you because he won't be playing. However, we've had a couple of our players that have been outcasts under Russell Martin, under the new manager, have sort of had a bit of a revitalised career. So Leslie Ugochukwu, who's on loan from Chelsea, has come in quite a lot, and he's playing a lot better, and I think being played in the right way for his style of football.
He's about 6'8", that fella, isn't he?
No, that's Paul Onuachu. Paul Onuachu's the guy he's our Nigerian striker who he kind of got brought in towards the end of Russell Martin's reign, mainly because people are like, you can't just keep playing the same striker week in, week out. His hold-up play is very good, but he scored his first goal last week, which really did set the fan base alight, and he dedicated it to the fans because somehow we're still selling out away ends, despite the fact that...
Big Les comes in at a much shorter 6'6". It's a much more manageable.
One of the few players. Sorry, I'm talking over the top of you, Greg, because I couldn't hear you there. What were you saying?
I was just saying that Leslie Ugochukwu comes in at a much more manageable 6'6", so it's a much easier target to contend with.
The Nigerian guy is one of the few players in the Premier League that can come on and tower over Dan Burn at a corner. So that's a worry.
This is also true.
That is a worry. Dan Burn has been our wall. Everything that comes in and from a corner. I think we've conceded 1 goal from a corner this season.
We've only scored 2 now, I think. And potentially, I think one of those was Paul Onuachu's last week. And the week before was technically an own goal. Yeah. Which was Manchester United's own goal, which, we played very well, but we really did get put to the sword that sort of last quarter of an hour. And that's been a lot of the story of our season, to be perfectly honest. We've had a lot of games where we have played better than we look like we have. And then because of our just lack of taking chances and, to be honest, just lack of finishing has resulted in we lose what would be very, very winnable games. But it's been a bit of an odd time for us, but we're kind of starting to see the seeds of something better. Obviously, we've somehow had a transfer in a Danish midfielder, a Grombach, who I don't think we expected anyone to come in because, quite frankly, who looks at Southampton right now in the position that we're in, potentially the lowest tally in the Premier League ever, and goes, I really fancy joining that. So whether or not he makes his debut at the weekend, who knows?
In 2 games, Zach, don't worry. You can change in 2 games.
You got more optimism than me. I'd love nothing more, but I think a lot of us have kind of accepted accepted we're down. And almost the club seems to do that. Like when they've been talking about bringing in a new director of football and of basically wanting to take charge of the sort of footballing operations, they've been very sort of, well, obviously this is now planning for next season. You're like, oh, we've already accepted we're kind of on our way out. But yeah, it's been tough, and I'm hoping that we'll put in the same level of fight we've put in the last 2 games, because realistically they could have been a lot worse. United was, ultimately it was a loss, and it was really harsh, but we let ourselves come undone. The last goal was very, very preventable, and then obviously our last game we scored twice, which is far more than I expected us to do, and we came in against a really, really on form Forest team. So yeah, it'll be an exciting one. That's kind of where I'm at.
That should be encouraging. I think you've got to. Keep the faith until you're mathematically miles away. It's still doable. Yeah, I reckon 36 points keeps you up, and you've got what at the minute 6.
So yeah, we got to do 10 games.
10 wins. You've probably got.
I think
7 or 8 home games.
We could still hit Conference League.
Greg still thinks we've got a European charge, which is extremely optimistic. But...
well, if you listen back to our podcasts even a week ago, we were discussing the likelihood of putting another 9 straight wins together and actually being the only team to come out of the pack and challenge Liverpool for the champion, for the title. And we didn't half feel a little bit silly when we were doing our match review on Sunday night, I tell you. Yeah, it's amazing how you get swept along. I mean, we played really well for a month. That's it, because we were a bit in and out up until through to November. It's all confidence.
I think that's it. Confidence is the big thing, and that's the thing that's been lacking in the team. But where some of these players are now getting their chances, that maybe there will be some more confidence. And I'd love to see it. I just can't get past just the general feeling of doom, and probably spending a bit too much time on social media, to be perfectly honest, because I don't think anyone's happy with how the club's been. And I think it's genuinely feeling the emotions of sort of promotion and like the playoff final, and it was an incredible moment. I got to go with my wife, me and Greg hung out, had a few beers. It was fantastic. But to be where we are now, it's just the sheer, it's really hard to hold on to some hope. And I feel like, Greg, you have much more of a desire because you pay a significantly large amount of money to see it week in, week out. So you need to cling to that hope a little bit. And our famous saying at this point is, it's the hope that kills you.
Absolutely.
But that's just unfortunately football. And we do a bit of towards the end of the ramble after another word from our partners at the Global Sports Podcast Network. The Global Sports Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap-up broadcasted in 5 different languages. This is your one-stop shop for your daily football fix. Find GSPN wherever you find your usual podcasts. So we're back. Obviously, this is the part that we all find difficult. I'll go to Greg first, which usually I'd give to our guests, but I just want to get the delusion out of the way first, so the people who can be realistic can talk about it towards the end, mate. So where do you think we're going to end up being after? Come on, Greg.
Look, we've had, although disappointing results, we had 82 minutes at United where we played well, and 20 minutes at the end of the Forest game where we played well and looked good. I feel like it's starting to come together. I feel like something's got to go our way, and unsurprisingly, I'm feeling like a home win. But I think maybe 2-1, because I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet, because that's too optimistic.
It's incredibly consistent from you there, Greg. 2-1. We can never keep a clean sheet, but you always somehow think we're going to outscore an opponent, and I find it endearing every week, mate. I've gone past the point that I think it's utterly delusional, and I just love to live in the world of your madness. So, Ian, what do you think the score will be?
I do think that I saw a lot of the Forest game as well. Whether that was just highlights or not, I can't remember. But I thought you were unlucky not to come right back on that. So I do think it's encouraging that the last few games, if you've got 1 or 2 people being given a chance, and that's coinciding with you looking a lot more of a team. You've brought Ramsdale in, who I think is a really good goalkeeper, and he's had a load more practice than he would have had when he was at Arsenal. So he should be even better than he was when he was at Arsenal.
Oh, there was a disallowed Forest goal, which if you get a chance to watch back, have a look, because you might disagree with that statement if you see it.
Well, it wasn't his fault. The centre half would have got the pelters for the third goal against Man United. But when he did give that ball up and Diallo ran through, I noticed Ramsdale had run off to the edge of the 6-yard box to receive the ball back from him, so he just wasn't in the goal at all.
Yeah, that was
a little
mistake.
bit of a comedy of errors, the whole thing, to be honest. So I'm expecting quite a tough game. I'm hoping that Eddie blaming part of the performance last week on fatigue, because somehow we can't play Wolves at home and then Bournemouth at home and have a different team play against Bromley in the Cup the week before, has exhausted us. So I think it's rubbish. But fatigue shouldn't have been an excuse for losing. It depends how they bounce back from that, as I say. And it can go one of two ways. We could end up with a game like the first game of the season, which ends up really nasty and scrappy, and the home team wins 1-0. I can see that happening. However, any regular listeners to the Newcastle United Daily Podcast will know that every match I predict a 3-1 Newcastle win. And I've been right 3 times in the last 4 games. We'll go with that. We'll go with 3-1. And it always seems to be Isak gets 2 and Gordon gets 1. So why not?
That checks out. I feel like I would probably go with similar, and maybe Paul Onuachu finally gets a home goal, because that's the things that we as Southampton fans have to look forward to now. Isn't the results, isn't really anything other than the moments. We have to enjoy the moments. So those 82 minutes that we were dominating United, we really enjoyed.
If Onuachu puts us 1-0 up, the roof's coming off of some areas. It's going to be an electric atmosphere.
Very much fan favourite, but unfortunately, yeah, I think that as much as things are starting to come together, I still think that there is a confidence problem, and I don't know if that can be resolved sooner rather than later. I don't know if they decide to play the new midfielder. Maybe it will change things up. Maybe it will get a bit more exciting. But I just think at the moment we're still very fragile, and it does feel like a lot of the players have down tools. So I think that if I go with a 3-1 Newcastle win, anything else I'll be pleasantly surprised. And I went with a 3-0 Nottingham Forest win. So the fact that we scored twice was a lovely surprise. But yeah, I'm kind of in full agreement, and it's just I just can't see us ever winning again. I know that sounds really dramatic, but it genuinely sometimes feels like that. Where we'll watch, and we all, as Saints fans, watched that game at the end of Forest, and we knew even with the extra 15 minutes of added time, it could have gone on for another 40, 50, 60 minutes. We just know that it was never going to be. And
Speak for yourself, Zach. I was running around the house waiting for the equaliser.
I guess I'll speak for myself and many of the fans out there that are having a hard time. But again, maybe one day I'll get to live in Cuckoo Land with you, Greg. I really genuinely hope I do.
You need to take Zach out for a beer. Get him a few beers, so he's going to sit and listen long enough for you to be able to. I like that positivity, and I don't think you've got false positivity. Not the way you just said. The new manager, new signing, new players coming into the team and giving results. I mean, you've not been slammed by anybody, have you, recently?
Ooh, I would say the Chelsea and Tottenham games. No, you're right. I guess
previous manager, it doesn't count.
Yeah, it's a new dawn. I don't know why I'm trying to cheer you up. I'm hoping that Eddie's magic that put us 5 up against Tottenham after 21 minutes that season is repeated in Southampton, and or we'll just do what we did to Ipswich and be 3 up at half time. So Man City didn't beat us on that, didn't they? Went and scored 6 against Ipswich, so it doesn't look merry.
Yeah, that was bizarre. I think it's just very much. I don't know. Maybe my mood will start to change. I think I expect the worst and enjoy the best, I think is where I'm at. And the problem is that the expecting the worst at the moment is much easier than ever expecting the best.
I can now see now, Zach. I can see Greg phoning me on Monday, going, "You're right, Ian. Hey, Zach's top of the world. Fancy it. Oh, I'll have wished it. Oh no. They'll never let me talk to away fans again."
To be fair, this is what happens when Greg lets me on the other podcast as well. I'm always like, well, you're going to win. Well, how do you want to win? Have you got an out-of-form striker? So to be perfectly honest, it's quite nice to maybe have that positivity. And you're right, Greg's positivity, to be clear, is never false. Football is big and important in both of our lives, and if it wasn't for our mutual love, we wouldn't have the podcast. So
yeah,
I think I'm just a bit maudlin. Maybe call it the January blues, but it's been an absolute pleasure, Ian. I've had a whale of a time this evening. I hope you have as well.
Good stuff. Yeah, great to talk to you. Like I said, I'm impressed. I'm impressed that you guys are doing everything that you need to do to have your successful podcast. I think it's a really important part of a podcast for all the listeners out there want to hear the interaction between the two teams. Because let's face it, footy's just training if you haven't got the two teams involved, and that's what you all watch it for. And there's too many teams that we've not been able to have a crossover podcast with because they just ignored our requests to come and talk to us, or our volunteering that we're here to do one, and they haven't done it. I don't know. Maybe they have better wildcard Wednesdays than we do. Don't want that. Still haven't got our head around midweek matches, mind. That's
we still struggle with that. Our scheduling, me and Greg have been very, very busy.
We've got a game in the week. I guess we just do 7 episodes.
We've had a couple of periods. I'm pretty sure I did a 20-30 minute episode solo on Maya Yoshida's career back in October at one point when we were all busy and tied up. But no, it's been absolutely fantastic. We've had a good laugh. Obviously, Daily Newcastle if you're a Newcastle fan, or if you're a Saints fan that's interested in Newcastle. You can find us on all of the social medias. We're on X, the everything app / Twitter, whatever you call it nowadays. We're on Instagram. We're on Blue Sky. We're on, where else are we, Greg? I always forget at least one.
YouTube,
TikTok, the other one, the other big one. We're on all those places.
Can I ask before you disappear off, because I know all the Newcastle fans will be interested, how are you getting on with Ryan Fraser? Silence speaks volumes.
He's disappeared.
He was very good in the Championship. I'm very surprised we purchased him on the last day of transfer deadline day. I feel very much like he misses Russell Martin. Apparently, he may be given an opportunity to impress at some point. He's just got 3 people ahead of him. Other than that, as a guy, for Saints fans, he is affectionately known as Wee Man, and he played a big part of the last season. Honestly, me and Greg kind of forget he's here. That is genuinely our opinions at this point. But yeah, any final words? Or
no? Well, he was a free transfer buy for us because he danged tools when he was playing for Eddie Howe.
He did, but we were aware
to work with Eddie Howe again. So yeah, he was all right for us, but then he ended up training with the kids again because of not doing what we wanted him to do. I think playing him on the wrong wing. I don't really know what happened on that, but he fell from favour, and we were glad he found a home to be.
He's still affectionately thought of. Put it that way. It's not. I don't think that is the problem. I think it is just that the way that we are set up now, and the fact that he was probably, really good mates of Adam Armstrong, and obviously very, very good friends with Russell Martin. And then the manager that brought him into the club that kind of put the faith in him has now gone. And suddenly he's now trying to battle his way into a side where we have players that I think are just kind of above where he's at. And that's very much how our new manager puts it, because he does not mince his words. He's incredibly blunt. Former Yugoslavian man, so he literally says his press conferences are done and dusted in about 10 minutes, and usually answers are yes, no, yes, yes, no, and no, I don't think he's good enough, that's why we're not playing him. Very much as opposed to lots of fluff around it.
Yeah.
So
what you want, though, isn't it? A bit of honesty, it's what you want. Well,
Exactly.
what I was going to say was, with your new Nigerian guy whose name escapes me, of course, it'll be etched on my memory forever when he scored a hat-trick on Saturday. You'll be able to recreate one of the iconic moments from Eddie's first half season when he rescued us from probably a position as dire as you find yourselves in when he took over from Steve Bruce, which was that they always made Dan Burn walk out alongside Ryan Fraser. You can do it with your Nigerian centre forward now. It's great.
That would be very, very exciting. Paul Onuachu is an extremely tall man.
Ryan Fraser looked like one of the mascots every time he walked out.
Still does. Not next to Juan Larios, but it's been an absolute pleasure, Ian. Everybody check out the Daily Newcastle. This has been the Daily Southampton. This has been a wonderful crossover episode, and we will see you all in the next one.
See you soon.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.